Arsenal put on a display in the North London derby to show why they are still one of the title favourites despite not getting the results they would have liked in recent weeks. Spurs fought in the second half, pressing more aggressively to make things much harder for the home side, but Arsenal held on for a 2-1 win. Arsenal's midfield dominance, occupying a significant portion of the Spurs half, can be seen from the heat map. It also shows Arsenal's proficiency down the right flank, where they had 54% of their attacks in this North London derby. And as ever, Martin Odegaard was pivotal to Arsenal's persistent threat down the right. Odegaard enjoyed the most touches with 73 and produced 9 passes into the final third. In the early stages, Timber narrowed from the right side to form a double pivot with Partey in the middle. This gave Arsenal the solid platform they needed to push their attacking players forward. Rice and Odegaard supported Havertz underneath from the inside channels, while the two wingers held their width. Timber's runs into the box from deep held Arsenal form clever rotations against Arsenal's left side. Timber's runs also dragged a defender with him, opening up space behind him. Saliba moved up into these spaces to close the area and prevent Spurs from having transitions by being nearer the ball. Timber's runs into the box also helped create enough time for Odegaard to receive in the half spaces, to cross to the far post where Rice was making late runs. Saliba's supporting position in the half space was also beneficial to Arsenal attacks, as from here he could cross the ball to the far post. Gabriel also moved up to support on the left, while Saliba covered, and this saw Arsenal form a 3 versus 3 against the Spurs defenders. And these wide combinations saw Spurs push back, giving up space to Arsenal in the midfield. So if Spurs did win possession, they could not find a forward pass to advance play and were quickly closed down. Arsenal's combinations and rotations down the right saw Tottenham commit many players to stopping Arsenal from receiving inside. This occasionally left the winger in enough space to receive. Also, Partey's movements to support in the half space meant that Arsenal could leave Rice in the box, where Arsenal had an overload at the far post. Spurs were often caught between pressing and defending in a block in the first half, and this left spaces that Bissouma needed to cover on his own. Odegaard in particular found space here to exploit and passed behind the Spurs backline to Sterling and the overlapping Timber. If Spurs had defended in a 4-4-2 block, this would have closed off the half spaces that Arsenal dominated from Spurs' varied 4-3-3, 4-1-4-1 shape. Sterling joined Havertz at the front to press the two Spurs centre-backs. When the ball was played, the player on the ball side made a curved run, cutting off a passing option. The Arsenal fullback then pressed up on the opposite fullback, leaving the forward on the other centre-back. Odegaard took up a position tightly marking Bissouma, while Rice pressed Sarr. This saw a few sketchy moments for the young Spurs keeper, as he was pressed when playing a long pass, conceding possession to Arsenal. Knowing how much Spurs like to play through the centre in build-up, Arsenal packed the centre with Odegaard still marking Bissouma. Realising the young keeper might be a route to goal, instead of pressing in to out, forcing the ball down the line, the Arsenal forwards started making curved runs out to in, which would block off a pass down the line. With Havertz and Odegaard blocking passes, this forced the ball back to the keeper to be pressed aggressively and force a mistake. Spurs' response to Arsenal's first half dominance was to make changes to the lineup. Maddison and Johnson replaced Sarr and Bissouma, and Spurs started to be a lot more aggressive in the press. Bergvall moved to the centre pivot position as Spurs had more of the possession. Johnson and Solanke picked up the two centre-backs, and Kulusevski moved to a central position. This saw Arsenal revert to going over the Spurs press, with Raya launching long passes. From this, Arsenal were unable to build passing sequences like in the first half. Johnson's hybrid pressing role allowed Maddison to mark the pivot and Son to pick up Odegaard when he dropped, while Kulusevski picked up Rice, blocking Arsenal's central progression. Maddison dropped back to support Spence and Son in protecting the Spurs left, but Arsenal was still able to overload the far post with Declan Rice. Tottenham's aggressive second half pressing meant that Timber was unable to take up the same advanced positions as in the first half, so Kai Havertz often widened to create overloads on the right and get behind left back Spence. Martinelli then floated into the centre forward areas. Havertz took up positions on the right more and more in the second half because Odegaard had to drop into pockets between Spurs' attacking and defensive lines on the right to assist with the build-up, alongside the inverting left back. Rice and the dropping Martinelli were also playing between the lines, giving Arsenal a temporary box midfield to overload the Spurs double pivot. Martinelli was then able to receive between the lines and drive at the Spurs backline, while Rice was also able to find space and drive at the Spurs backline, especially during transitions. That happened more in the second half. An XG of 1.42 against 0.83, while they also dominated the ball in the first half and looked dangerous in transitions in the second. Missing 4 big chances suggests the 3 points went in the right direction. This now sees Arsenal move up to within 4 points of Liverpool, although Liverpool still have a game in hand. Thanks for watching.